Well, good afternoon and welcome to a cold winter day at UCY.TV. I'm Vince Easley here in the fall time where it feels like winter. Filling in for Drew Lamb for Off Grid Journey. It's my pleasure. Drew's a man, he does some great radio. Also double crossed on Thursday nights here and he along with Chuck Horton. So welcome everybody in chat and listening downstream. If you are downstream, come on back to UCY.TV and check out all the great programming that's right here. We have some of the very, very best. Said this the other day. I think UCY is a good litmus test and really it keeps a person really balanced. If you want non-extremist programming here, views of the world, you've got it. We've got just a little bit of everything here. Thank you, Jules. Welcome everybody in chat. So today I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Backtrack the off-grid journey, and I thought I'd start out. Now, last week I hosted also, and I kind of jumped around a lot, and expect I'll do the same today. But I thought I'd start out back about 1960-something, back when I was a wee lad. Not far from here, 100-something miles. My family came to Arkansas from Tennessee in 1850. George Easley, he'd have been about 3 years old, traveling across man, could you imagine traveling back then before roads? I guess there were roads, but not paved, but bouncing along in a little wagon. So anyways, I come along about 5 generations. Happened to be born over in Tulsa, but my family was up there in the northwest corner of Arkansas. And I remember life fondly as a kid at my grandma and grandpa's. And I thought I might just start out on a day just like today, a Sunday. We'd get up, me and my little brother, and my grandpa generally, or my grandma would fix some breakfast, and old country breakfast usually consisted of fried potatoes, and bacon and eggs, and gravy and biscuits. So after breakfast, we'd head on down to the little church up around the corner, and then coming back home, I can remember the little mulberry tree. And in the summertime, it would have been a day like today, but in the summertime, we'd come out of that tree just covered, stained with mulberry juice. It was a little country road, and on down back to my grandma and grandpa's house. I can look back and see it all so well. As I'm coming down the fence line, there's the pasture out there, and I can see one of the barns across, and on down to the front porch, out under the big oak tree. Remember sitting out under that oak tree, and the big old black carpenter ants crawling around. My grandma always said that they were very industrious, and you might remember the story about the grasshopper and the ant. Well, I've been a grasshopper most of my life. But an off-grid journey really is going back in time in a way, isn't it? Life was much simpler there. Money was a lot different, and people didn't make as much money. A lot of stuff depended on barter, trading around. And my grandpa was a horse trader. They raised the animals, raised the crop. Looking back out the front door, back down the road I just came from, over to the right, over across the little yard there was a big garden area. My grandpa would plow that. He put it in with a team of mules or horses, whatever he had to hook up there, because he's always trading around. He had a tack shop. Looking back just straight, walked back out in the garden, looked back, there was a tack room. He had a forge in there. Of course, he would make most of his what he needed for harnesses and reins and all that stuff for the horses, and had a little forge in there, and he'd shoe his horses. Good morning, Mr. Cooper, and everybody else in chat. Joe, Captain Gringo, and just see a list right there of who's chatting right now. So anyways, let's see here. Out in behind the barn there were some apple trees. Oh, they were so good. Not like the red delicious apples of the day that you get in the store. They were so good. And out there was pasture, which normally consisted of milk cow and a beef cow racing. And then off to the right, there was the hog pen. Come fall time, you'd do your butchering, hang them up in the cool temperature, which, for some reason we don't have consistently cold days anymore. We get cold, we get hot. Like today, it's way, way, way colder than it ought to be at this time of year. We're looking at February January weather here, at least the end of December. Expecting some snow. If I haven't rechecked the weather, but looks like we might get some snow down here in the Ozarks of Arkansas. Well, let me see here. I have pulled up a bunch of stuff looking back in life, and so we're looking back now to like 1876 to 1900. And this comes from the Library of Congress. And it was the rise of industrial America and life in late 19th century. The United States began as a largely rural nation, with most people living on farms and in small towns, villages, while the rural population continued to grow until the late 1800s. The urban population was growing much more rapidly. Still, a majority of Americans lived in rural areas in 1900. Many of these Americans had settled on the plains in the 1800s. Abundant rainfall in the 1800s and the promise of free land and the Homestead Act drew Easterners to the plain. So we do see a kind of a drawback for people wanting to move back to a simpler time, a simpler life. I would say there's probably many reasons for that. Life was, of course, a whole lot harder then. Money didn't exist as it did today. I'm probably going to skip. I'm going to probably skip past what I was going to go to, and let me go back here to some of the money here. And here we go. This comes from the Atlantic, and how America spends money 100 years in the life of the family budget. Surprisingly, well, with the fiat money, of course, it appears to be there's a lot more money, or at least use for us to put elsewhere. Here's a comparison chart: 1900, 1950, and 2003. And originally, most of the money was spent on food, housing, and apparel. And that changed. That has reversed since 1950. We see just the opposite, and less money actually being spent. How we spend in 1900. The year is 1900. The United States is a different country. We're near the end of the millennia, but in this, what does he call it? But in the warp and woof of life, we are living closer to the 1600s than the 2000s. As Brad DeLong memorably put it, a quarter of households have running water. Even fewer own the home they live in. Fewer still have flush toilets. 1/12 of households have gas or electric lights. 1/20 have telephones. 1 in 9 own a car, and nobody owns a television. You know why that was, of course. There was no TVs in the days. I don't own a TV, I'm proud to say, but I do watch a little TV when it happened to be forced upon me when I'm at a friend's or something. But I do get to choose what I want to watch here on with the internet, of course, many sites. So pretty picky about what I do watch. So where are we spending all our money? Most of our income goes to the places where we work, to the farm, to the textile mills, and to the house. The typical household haul in 1901 is about $750. Families spend a whooping 80% of that on food, clothes, and homes. Back in about the 70s, it was probably 25% went to shelter, if I recall correctly. In 1900, seen from the perch of Bureau of Labor Statistics, which counts national jobs, income, and spending, the United States is like one big farm surrounded by a cluster of small factories. Almost half the country works in agriculture. As for the building services economy, there were more household servants than sales workers. As for the women's rights movement, more than twice as many households report income from children, 22%, and their wives, 9%. Quite a difference compared to today. Over the next 100 years, the U.S. family got smaller, more reliant on working women and computers, less reliant on working children and farms, and most important, much richer. About 68 times richer, in fact. Household incomes, adjusted for inflation, doubled 6 times in the 20th century, or once every decade and a half on average. Of course, comparing that to today, if you've got a job, to make payments. You're making payments on your house, your car. You need your car to get to work. So it has shifted, and I think these are skewed because there is definitely not taking into account the fiat money system. The year is now 1950. Compared to the 5 decades earlier, the United States is already a different country. The population has doubled to about 150 million. The economy's share of farmers has fallen from 40% to 10%, thanks to the mechanization of the farm, led by, of course, the mighty tractor. At the same time, food has gotten much cheaper compared to wages. And I'm going to disagree with that. Actually, the cost of food is much greater when you consider the cost on down the line, which, you know, these packaged foods, man, they're not good for you, right? I think most people here might agree with that. So when you're comparing the cost of health, 1950, you're spending 5%. Healthcare will break you now. Let me rename that sick care. It's definitely not anything but managing disease today. Okay, meanwhile, the making stuff economy is at its apex. Nearly half of workers, men, are craftsmen or operators. Excuse me just a second. Almost didn't get the cough button. Speaking of which, man, I had this lung stuff, this upper respiratory virus for 2 weeks, and a week ago, last Monday, about a week ago, a friend of mine had some essential oil blend, and I put that on my chest, and the very first day, man, I noticed right away, and a couple of days of that, and it cleared up what persisted for some time. So, continuing, factory wages have grown by 7-fold since 1901, comparing back again to 1950. And they've nearly tripled since the Great Depression. Excuse me. Textile manufacturing has never been higher and will never be higher. The year 1950 is its exact peak. Where's all the jobs gone now? Where's all the textile jobs in manufacturing? They've all gone overseas. Part of the plan for today, I believe. Okay, so it would continue. The apparel manufacturing would grow through the 1970s before collapsing in the last third of the decade. The U.S. was making stuff capital of the world, and our domestic dominance probably felt indefinite. Not so much anymore, right? Let's see here. I'm going to... Okay, I've read that. This is where I want to go. This comes from www.growingseasons.com, and this is the 4th season. A lot of people, people's schedules were pretty much dictated by the seasons. Used to, in August, the hottest time of the year, that's when wood was cut, firewood. I've got a nice fire blazing over here myself, and a little spit and moisture coming out of the sky. I think it's going to turn into snow. So let's read about the 4th season. Winter days provided a farmer of the early 1900s with some needed time to repair his horse-drawn implements and leather harnesses. Well, I can see my grandpa still today. In preparation for spring field work and planting. The ability to improve and create improvements to farm tools and traditional farming practices had historically been necessities for those that tilled the soil. Being a jack of all trades in practical ability was important for the farmer who worked the land with horses. First-hand knowledge of plowing, tilling, planting, cultivating, haying, threshing, and harvesting gave him a very personal perspectives on the social challenges and difficulties of farm life. The smallest improvement could make a significant difference in getting work accomplished. Tinkering with equipment, modifying existing machinery, and inventing better ways of getting things done were important. Well, that was really the heyday, wasn't it? If you'll pardon the pun, of improvements. I'd say probably between the latter part of the 1800s and the first half of the 1900s. A lot of change took place. Inventions for better harvesting, or saw it. You've heard necessity is the mother of invention, of course, right? So, making do with little was a familiar condition. Not so much today in this disposable society that we live in. I like to call the Bic Lighter Society. Use it up and throw it away, all thanks to planned obsolescence. Creating something to meet a pressing need was a way of life for farm families. I say farm families, and in comparison to the off-grid journey of today, basically that's what it is, right? So in winter, there were still chores to do: animals to feed and tend, cows to milk, corn to grind, water to pump, and wood to chop, at least to split it. Boy, that was oh man, compare that to a chainsaw. Let's see, Stihl came up with when did they invent their chainsaw? I can't recall, but by the 50s anyways, they were coming out with the anti-vibration and, making smaller chainsaws. It used to take 2 men to run a chainsaw in the earlier part of the last century. Today, boy, you can go out there and, you can rip out a day's worth of wood in about 5 minutes. And no comparison to having to buck wood, cross-cut it back in those days. I remember my grandpa, he set up a table saw and cut poles and drug them up. And, of course, Arkansas is known for hills and hollers, but dragged the small trees up and cut them across on a table saw, as opposed to bucking them by hand. Anyways, lot easier today in so many ways. But one thing about smaller trees and limbwood, and I can attest, it does burn a lot faster. You don't get the same BTUs. Okay, continuing. There were still chores. All right. So, for the family to keep warm and fed, the kitchen stoves required diligent attention with the fuel of corn cobs, wood, or coal. In the farmhouse, there was no central heating, running water, or indoor plumbing. I remember that as a kid, my grandma and grandpa's. I remember when we got some indoor plumbing, and it sure made that trip to the outhouse. Oh man, especially in the cold. Did your business quick, didn't you? Heavy snows resulted in the need for clear paths to the barn, outhouse, there you go, and other farm buildings with a horse and makeshift plow. Neighboring farmers also worked together to clear parts of their nearby country roads of snow. If the drifts weren't impossibly deep, that is. During the winter, a farmer might use his skills to make a needed toolbox or mailbox, build simple furniture, prepare his horse-drawn implements for spring repair, and mend leather harnesses. A small forge, my grandpa had one, on the farm was used to work on equipment, create metalwork, and reset horseshoes, which during the wear and tear on the horse, they might throw a hoof, or a shoe, and required to be reshoed. And that the shoe would then have to be, if it wasn't worn out, it'd have to be heated in the forge and beat back straight, and then resized to the horse. There's set sizes for different animals. Of course, have different size hoofs, but so they'd come in blanks, and but nevertheless, they'd still have to be fitted, and that would be done by heating it, beating it to the shape, holding, then lifting the hoof up and holding it up close to see if it was close, and when it did, it was usually set then, cooled, of course, and then nailed through the hoof at the part like a fingernail, which wouldn't hurt the horse. It made them have better grip in the field and saved a lot of tear on the hooves. If you've ever seen a horse these days, it's not been shod, then the hooves keep going out. You had to trim the hooves before putting the shoes on. So a trip to the blacksmith shop in town was taken for more complicated repair work and specialized horseshoeing. I never seen that. Often living far from a replacement parts for equipment, a farmer had to improvise, or to have the local blacksmith fashion a substitute so work could continue. Okay, excuse me just a second. Let me grab some coffee. And that one was ready to go. Horse-drawn farm equipment constructed of metal and wood could be very heavy and cumbersome. Adjusting and positioning implements required lifting, tugging, and pulling by the farmer, both during repairs and when various pieces of equipment were hitched to the horses. There is a lot of equipment when considered hitching up a team. You know, you've got your collar and your reins, all the harnessing that required to either hook up to the plow or to the wagon. I remember wagon rides. You know, I think people today in this generation, and people are grown, you know, I know today that have never experienced this. I think it's, for me, it's a great pleasure, an honor to be able to reflect back into simpler times. Kind of nostalgic, remembering back to the wee little days of being a lad. So, continuing, leather harnesses required regular upkeep to keep it safe. You had to keep it oiled, keep it in good repair, both for work horses and driving horses. A specialized vocabulary, oh, I love this, I remember this, recalls mine now, my grandpa saying G and ha, one turns left, one turns right, and others for backing them up. So let's see what they say. A specialized vocabulary to describe parts of harness fittings such as wiffle trees. There's a single tree and a double tree, and that was the part that went across that in front where they hitched in that you hooked your horses to there. Now that would if you didn't have an equal team, then you would move your yoke. Well, if you were using a yoke like on with cows, but anyways, with the single tree also, there was an adjustment there where you could change your fulcrum there, where one side, one horse is pulling more than the other, which offset the workload, made them equal, right? Let's see where I left off. Okay, wiffle trees, reins, breechings, traces, collars, hames, and pole straps. These were vital connectors to the horses, the implements or vehicles, and the farmer driving them. Cleaning and repairing and oiling harnesses for work and basic transportation were regular, time-consuming activities when living with horsepower. Last week we talked about horsepower. Man, this day and age of the cheap fossil fuel really has eased life, of course, like we was talking about a little earlier. So winter days also brought the fleeting dreams of inventing something as revolutionary as had blacksmith John Deere. Everybody knows about John Deere Green, right? That was in 1837 at Grand Detour, Illinois, when he fashioned a self-scurrying steel plow out of a broken saw blade and changed farming with his innovation. In reality, the would-be farmer inventor had little time to commercially produce his ideas because immediate work demanded primary attention, and farming was a relatively isolated way of life. To create an invention and receive a patent from the government was an abiding dream at the beginning of the 20th century, not only for farmers but American inventors eager to improve life and industry. It was a time of optimism, created by the success of the Wright brothers' flight and Henry Ford's automobile. The ability of small gasoline engines enabled people to further create their own ways to lighten the drudgery of endless hard work. Taking an invention beyond its use on a farm and into commercial production could be an expensive, difficult, and time-consuming task. Even if a farmer had been granted a U.S. patent, his monitoring of any infringement on it was nearly impossible. A reflection of the changing times also appeared in popular stories and poetry published in magazines and books. James Whitcomb Riley, 1849 to 1916, the Hoosier poet, wrote Grigsby's Station, a poem relating how the securing of a successful patent had forever altered a family's life at the expense of peace and comfort. Thank you, corporatocracy. School children at the time often memorized the poetry of this celebrated Indian writer whose simple sentiments reflected on the passing of earlier country life. At one point, Riley was considered the most popular poet in the United States. His poems were read by lamplight on cold winter evenings as a family entertainment and recited by students at one-room country schools. And I talked about that last week. My first school was well, there was more than one room, but most generally, everybody from young and old, first grade on to sixth grade were there before they got shipped on down to the next town down the line with a bigger school over in Gravett. And that was in Hiwassee, what I'm talking about. Wintertime on the farm moved at its own unique pace because of weather conditions and shortened hours of daylight. In a brief thaw, temporary melted snow and ice, the time was frequently used by a farmer to go out and mend fences or clear rocks from the fields in preparation for the promise of spring. Okay. This one, let's see, I actually want to go back and get another one. Let's see, where you at? This is, let me find it. I listed them all out here. Daggum, I should have just left them all open. That would have been a little easier to look at. Let me try this one here. No. This one is some stories from children is what I'm looking for. And I'll just have to open them all up and just see if I find them. Which one I'm looking for. Like I said, I had so many tabs open, I just copied them. I think this might be it. Agriculture in the classroom. Nope. This one's probably it. No. Let me see here. Let's take a look inside, shall we? I missed you this morning, Sally. I went back off. I bugged out last night and got off with some coffee. And really, I don't have it. Well, doggone. I already know I opened those two. Man, where you at? Chapters from the Golden Age to the Great Depression, is this you? No, but maybe I'll find the one I'm looking for. I wanted to read some, what some children were saying. I still want to find that, doggone it. And I know this wasn't it, but I'm going to open it anyways. And. Life on the Farm. Did I already open this? Yes, I did. Well, I'll tell you what. Since I'm just looking and looking, let me just go elsewhere. Let's just read from this. This is, and I'll have to move this out of the way where I can see, www.gpo.gov, Chapter 3, from the Golden Age to the Great Depression. The period 1900 to the Great stock market crash in 1929 was one of the most dramatic changes in American society in general. Agriculture in particular. Man, I wanted to go. Just bear with me, if you will. I really want to find this one. Let me see what I've got open. Country living, 1850 to 1900. Farm life. Oh, this is it. Doggone it. Okay. All right. So, this is from www.watershed.org, Education Farm Life, h.htm. And there's, we've got, let me just read this here. The following work was produced in May 2001 by Ava. 7th grade language arts classes, Donna Sherman, teacher. The students read from Farm Life section, An Old Timer Remembers, as background material. The assignment wrote a short history describing someone about your age who is living on a farm in the early 1900s. Okay, Mike Colson, he says, it is summer and we're caring for our crops. We have yellow watermelons, sweet corn, pinto beans, and Granny Smith apples. I believe that's what we had on that tree behind my grandpa's attack room there. I believe those are probably Granny Smith. Nice and crisp. Said we also had Jersey cows, pigs, and chickens. The watermelons are growing in a pool. What? By Fire Creek. We're growing in a pool. I never knew watermelons are growing water, even though they're called watermelons, right? We barely had any money, so Dad barters eggs and produce to our friendly and kind neighbors. We have finally gotten to swim to the creek, and it's very good. Very cold other times. I have spent my spare time after helping with the animals, gardening, school, or church, playing in the creek, he says. It's a whole lot different day in this day and age, right? When I was a kid, I was out stomping the woods, toting a gun, old hound dog at my heels, and out treeing squirrels and running rabbits. Could you imagine turning a 20 gauge over to a kid these days, 6 or 7 year old? They'd probably put you under the jail, unsupervised. Here's Summertime by Susan Cummins. The summer has come and it's very hot. It's time to bury the food so it will keep. I wish we had a root cellar. Then I wouldn't have to do this in the burning up weather. This is the main chore I have to do for the day. My little brother doesn't know how deep to dig it, so it won't spoil, but he's going to help me a little. I'm glad we don't have to bury the food in a haystack. We don't keep haystacks. I don't think it will take too long to bury it. At least I hope not. Tomorrow I'm going to go to town to trade some eggs for some groceries. Excuse me. I always look forward to this because my parents let me get a stick of candy. This weekend, my mom and I are going to start canning some of the fruits and vegetables. We don't like burying all of our food. It's sort of fun canning food with Mom. We get to talk and have fun. Summertime is a pretty busy time for everyone. The Summer Months by Wesley Davis. The year is 1905. It's midsummer right now, and I am helping the family in the hayfields. I'm 13 years old, and Papa said it's time. He said it's time I did a real man's work, because we don't have one of those newfangled steam tractors. We have to cut, rake, and bale hay by hand. The day started early. We got up at 5 a.m., and we're going to start with the south field. You could see the golden hay everywhere in the morning sun. Somebody's saying something on Skype. I'll check that in a minute. You could see the golden hay everywhere in the morning. The birds were chirping, and the air smelled of rain coming soon, but not for long. We got the horses hooked up and the bale carrier, then we started to work. One person led the horse, usually the youngest person. 10 people cut the hay. 10 people cut the hay. 20 people rake it. I was at the back of the line because I was just learning how to do it. The dust clouded my eyes and choked me. It was hard to breathe. At almost 9 a.m., it's got to be 9 at night. At 9 o'clock, we got it done. I was beat. I ate a big dinner and hit the sack. Tomorrow we do the north field. Yeah, that was an all-day job. What about them 8-hour work weeks today, huh? Let me just check this here. Okay, that was from my guest yesterday. Yes, Jordan DeYoung. Thank you, Jordan. Just a quick thank you right there. He was on yesterday at Cancer Kickers with me, and he's tweeted the YouTube link for that. You can find that in the videos at ucy.tv user YouTube. Okay, back to A Day on the Farm. This by Bethany Everett. She says, this spring we are having a lot of baby animals on the farm. The creek has risen a lot because the snow has melted. We have begun to dig our meat out of the hay, which is where we stored it during the winter. We're also building a new spring house at one of our other springs because we are expecting more milk this year. Oh boy, yeah, I remember at one of my great uncles, the spring house there, and the dipper there, boy, you could dip up some cold water. Oh, it was so good. And of course, in there you had your milk and butter and other things that were not without refrigeration. That's where they were stored in a spring house. I forgot that. Yeah, out to the left of the porch, out in that field. That's where my grandpa. That's where he planted corn for fodder, food and fodder for the animals. And there was a cistern out there that was covered over, and my uncle had put some crappie down in there. And of course, with them living in the dark, they became blind. But I remember pulling fish up out of the little hole covering the cistern. Well, we never drank out of that. At that time, they had a well. But the water up there wasn't near as good. There's a lot more sulfur water up there than there is down here like some 100-odd miles is where I am now from my ancestral home. But man, we have some wonderful water here. Golly, look at that. It's pretty near 20 till. Time is flying. Let's see. Where do I go? Okay. Today, yeah, back to a day on the farm. So this is Bethany again. Today we took some eggs to the general store. I think I already said that. I'll drop down the next paragraph. Next, we went to the mill with some of the last year's grain. We took some of last year's seeds from the barn and began planting the crop. We mostly grow corn, green beans, and potatoes. Those were staples. I absolutely remember that. There's a difference, of course, between field corn and sweet corn, and there's a lot more corn today that's not the same corn that it was back then, right? Especially with the BT corn, with Roundup Ready crops. Big problem with that we've all discussed previously. So we also plant wheat for flour. Now wheat's relatively changed to the dominance that predominates our diet today. Back then, mostly it was millet, and you may recall if you've had a friend with a parakeet or something, you know those little seed heads, that little balls all on the stem right there, these little tiny seeds. You'll find it in bird seed, commercial bird seed, but millet was really the main grain used for breads back in those days. So says also we plant wheat for flour. We use our horses to plow up the field so it'll be easier to plant. If we're lucky, we'll get the field plowed and potatoes planted before sundown. Then we go in for a supper of freshly caught fish and go to bed early so we can get a fresh start in the morning. Indeed. Now, the ways of life in the 1900s by Mist and Grace. The days get harder and harder as I grow up on the farm. Each day I get up at the crack of dawn and work till the sun sets in the west. As I trudge home to claim my supper, I think about what it would be like to live in a place where there are not back-breaking chores waiting to do every time I turn around. But I knew if I never lost hope nor my strength, I would make it out all right. I know I'm young, but I'm very independent and keep my head in a panic situation. Like when my mom and pa got really low on our supply of food, my younger siblings were always whining about how hungry they were. So I went out to the creek and caught some fish. There were only a few, and they were small, but it would get us through a couple of days. I found that the creek came in handy, so I began going more and more often, getting what I needed. A lot of the times there'd be berries that I could pick, and where they had grown by the bank when it was damp. Not many things have been going on since fall has rolled around, except, of course, getting food or my family still. Getting food for my family still. I can see that Mom and Pa have been losing a lot of weight, and every time I look at them, I can see the sadness buried in their faces. But they won't be looking like that for much longer, due to the fact that I have found us a little place in town. It's more like a cottage, I'd say. There are not many people in our town, so we'll not have any trouble finding jobs. There's always been an offer given to me, and it's a pretty complicated job, but there's still no arguing when Pa comes to help. I'm hoping that becoming a blacksmith at this age will do me some good. Maybe a lot of good. Well, I'm growing up and it's getting harder. I'm now 17 and I've been through a lot in my time. I feel as I'm growing up too fast. I hope to be going off to another territory real soon. Now that all my brothers and sisters are old enough to take care of themselves, Mom and Pa do not approve, but I'm a young man and fit to make a living, and I plan to do it by panning gold. Shout out to Dave Evers. Miner Dave, Keeper of the Republic. Well, let's see. Well, I'm doing mighty fine. I've been panning for gold for a mere 40-odd year now. And I mean, I'm doing fine. I've been in my illness and my hacking cough. Yeah, boy, hard life, wasn't it? Sometimes I think I'm going to lose my lungs. Lately, been sitting away watching the days go by. My breath is getting shorter and the days longer. So to all of my people, I'm signing away. Much thanks to Bryant Creek for helping me and my family survive, and bids us goodbye. Here's Life on the Farm by Mandy Hampton. I'm really enjoying these stories. I hope you all are too. Of course, I'm not keeping up with y'all over in chat since I'm over here on these sites of reading. So Mandy says, it feels like this is going to be a plentiful spring. Our animals are having babies and our crops are growing very well, which means they are going to build a bigger spring house and a bigger water hole. My family is very happy about it though. But today is Sunday. It is Sunday, isn't it? And we have just gotten home from church. I wore my best Sunday dress to town, she said. We can't work hard because today is our day to go into town. We're going to trade some eggs for a few groceries. Today is now Monday, and we're working very hard. Going to have to work hard, very hard all week. My first chore is to cook breakfast for everyone. There are 8 of us to feed, and we're going to build our spring house today and dig up some of the vegetables that we buried for at the first of winter. Our spring house is full, is halfway finished, and I'm cooking lunch. Mother has come home from the mill, and Father's working the cattle. Our work is done for today, and we have just gotten finished with eating dinner. After dinner, we all say our good night prayer together and then head to our beds. Oh, yeah, the old bed piled up with quilts in the winter, buried and snuggled up in there. She says in finishing, this is what goes on about every day out here on the farm. Ashley Lawson says that a busy time in the springtime. Said her name is Ashley. Her parents own a farm by Mansfield, Missouri. It is springtime right now. That is a busy time of year for me. My sister, mother, and I have to spend most of our waking hours in the garden. While we're in the garden, my father and 2 brothers are in the field making hay. You're not making hay in the springtime, sister. What's going on there? In the garden, we plant corn, potatoes, strawberries, and watermelons and tomatoes. Then we make our yard look nice. We plant a flower garden. This is very beautiful. Many colors like blue, pink, white, yellow, and just like the rainbow, she says. Every morning we get up at 5 in the morning and work in the garden until 9 in the morning. Then we have to go feed the horses, cattle, hogs, and chickens. Father and my 2 brothers usually get very tired in the afternoon, so we have to bring them a container full of cold water. They get home by dark. By then we have the house cleaned, dinner cooked, and we go to bed at 8:30 to get a good night's sleep. In the morning, my mother gets up, makes a small breakfast for us. Then my father and brothers leave to go to the field. We're done planting now, so we stay home, and within a week after we get done planting, my father and brothers are done in the field, so we wait 1 month or so, and we go pick the corn, potatoes, strawberries and watermelons and tomatoes, and go sell them in town. Eat all you can and sell the rest, right? We've got a couple of more stories, 3 more. Yep, I'm going to read the rest of them. We've got about 15 minutes left. And normally I'd be off right now posting for Hal Anthony Behind the Woodshed coming up, but I will do that when I finish, so be a little late sharing there. This is by Living on the Farm by Sarah Maggard. It's early summer in the Medlock family. We're getting, her name's Maggard, but the Medlock family were getting ready to harvest their crop. Annie and his sister Becky come along to help. They started by helping with the garden. Becky started pulling up the carrots. How great the smell, she said. Mrs. Medlock was gathering onions. They got to her feet when they heard the tractor coming. It was Mr. Medlock coming out of the field. He had just cut the hay. Annie went right to work in the field. They got the hay baled by lunch. When they came in, Mrs. Medlock and Becky had lunch ready. They had carrot soup, and for dessert, there was blackberry pie. Andy and Mr. Medlock went back to the field, and then Mrs. Medlock and Becky started canning the vegetables. After supper, they all went right to bed. They were so tired. The next day, they went out and did the chores. The men went back to the fields, and the ladies went back to their work. They had gotten a lot done and hoped to get even more that day. Farm Life on Bryant Creek by Lindsay Porter. When Riley looked over the hill, he saw the Bryant Creek running through the hills and making its way past the bridge. He saw the old Slater place up on the hill and waved a friendly greeting to his neighbor friend, Dakota. He turned and started to run back up the hill towards his family's cabin. He didn't want his mother to be angry, but he had taken so long at the creek. When he reached his home, there was no one there. They'd already taken the produce to the root cellar. They had left a big pile of all the other food that was his share to put away somewhere. He didn't realize that he had taken so long getting the milk to the creek. He'd have to hurry to catch back up with his family. He grabbed the meat and eggs and ran towards a huge oak tree that his family used as a root cellar. After that, they all got the food put away. Riley got the wheat stalks out of the corn and started to rake the grains off the stalks. He had to get the rest of the grain into the wheat bag before winter really set in, so that they could take the bag into town and have it ground for the winter bread supply. Riley fell into his bed that night and exhausted from another farm's day work. And the last little story here is by Jerry Yeary. Well, since Mama went to the store today, me and Dad went to the creek. We had to go bury the groceries in the backyard and keep them cold. But since it's December, we had to make sure we didn't bury them too shallow. If we did, they would freeze. Daddy and I went to the general store today to sell Farmer John our finest hen eggs. Farmer John said, "All right, sonny boy, but I ain't going to pay 2 cents an egg for those cotton-picking things." So I sold them to Farmer Bob for 25 cents an egg. What? No way. I think he's fibbing. Okay, we're done with that one. Let's see, where do I go to from here? Oh, you know what I wanted to do just for fun? And I think I've already got it open, don't I? Yeah. This was during a search about barter, and I thought it's kind of funny. This is from the IRS, topic 420. Hemp is such a wonderful bartering item, isn't it? But I don't think you're talking about that. Now, according to the IRS, bartering occurs when you exchange goods or services without exchanging money. An example of bartering is a plumber exchanging plumbing service for that of a dental services of a dentist. And you know what they say? You must include in gross income in the year of receipt the fair market value of goods or services. Now, might be just going a little bit off topic here, but IRS is kind of a collections agency for these so-called Federal Reserve notes that we use to trade in. So taxing your labor is, first of all, not legal to start with. It shouldn't be lawful. It's definitely not lawful. But anyways, according to IRS, you've got to include that. Well, I'll leave off with that. But 420. Yeah, thank you, IRS. Now, this is a reminder. Off-Grid Journey you can find on Facebook, and that's Drew Lamb's page here. He's got lots and lots of good stuff. His last post a couple hours ago was a battery to prop up renewable power hits the market. And that looks like quite a big battery bank that he has shown there. But I'll let y'all find that. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just hit copy and drop it over and come over here to chat and say howdy doody. Howdy doody. There you go. There's Off-Grid Journey on Facebook. If y'all are on Facebook, go have a look and a like. Remember, liking is loving and sharing is caring. Hi, Lumper. Cooper's gone. Yeah, Jill says it must be nice to have family in high places. I thought it was the same farm. Okay, so I'm completely out of sorts there. No idea where y'all been talking about there. This comes from ArkansasPreservation.com. Let's get down the shovel and the hoe. Cotton and rice farm history and agriculture in the Delta, the Arkansas Delta, 1900-1955 by Holly Hope. Looks like it's a PDF. It looks like some pretty interesting reading here. I just did just a little bit of reading there, but I'm not going to go into that here. I'm just going to grab it. In case y'all would like to take a look, I'll drop that off there. And that's I'm right between where I used to live as a kid and where the Delta is. I can't remember. There's a book. I guess it doesn't do any good to mention, but there was a book written about life then. Life in the Delta, that is. And I do not recall it. All right. And we'll run from this. Rural life in the late 19th century. I've learned from this. This one here, here's U.S. history pre-Columbian to the new millennium. Western Folkways. It's called www.ushistory.org. Life on the farm. And have I read this? So, oh, no, I have not. Homestead at last. Many Eastern families who long for the opportunity to own and farm a plot of land of their own were able to realize their dream in Congress when Congress passed the Homestead Act in 1862. I think I read this last week, or from it, partly. We'll skip down. A harsh and isolating environment. The woes faced by farmers transcended economics. Nature was unkind in many parts of the Great Plains. Blistering summers and cruel winters were commonplace. Frequent drought spells made farming even more difficult. Insect blights raged through some regions, eating further into the farmers' profits. Farmers lacked political power. Washington was a long way from the Great Plains. Washington will save us. All we need is just to elect the right guy, right? And politicians seemed to turn a deaf ear to the farmers' cries. Help, help, help. Social problems were also prevalent. With each neighbor on 160-acre plots of land, communication was difficult and loneliness was widespread. Farm life proved monotonous compared to the bustling cities of the East, although rural farmers were now able to purchase mail-order products. Thanks! Oh, I knew they was going to say that. Through catalogs such as Sears and Roebuck and Montgomery Ward. Monkey Ward's long gone, ain't they? Sears ain't far behind. There was simply no comparison to what the Eastern market could provide. These conditions could not last. Out of the social and economic unrest, farmers began to organize and make demands that would rock the Eastern establishment. Yep. I think it says a lot when we realize that the government doesn't solve problems, they create problems. Do they not? This is from www.agclassroom.org. It's a timeline. Oh, I don't know that we'll get into this. Well, I'll just go here. Crops and livestock. 1900-1910, turkey red meat emerges as a commercial crop. 1900 to 20, extensive experimental work to breed disease-resistant varieties of plants to improve plant yield and quality was to increase productivity of farm animal strains. In 1903, hog cholera serum was developed. 1904, first serum stem rust epidemic affecting wheat. Transportation. In 1909, the Wrights demonstrated the airplane. Agricultural trade and development. In 1900 and 1909, agriculture exports were 917 million, or 58% of total exports. 1905, International Institute of Agriculture was established. Life on the farm in the 1900s to the 1920s, urban influence on rural life intensified. In 1908, that's when my grandpa was born, Model T Ford paves way for mass production of automobiles. President Roosevelt's Country Life Commission focuses attention on the problems of farm lives and difficulty of keeping children on the farm. Well, old children's always wanting to run off and pan gold or something, weren't they? Well, that was a story we read about that one fella. We're about out of time. Country Life Movement from 1908 to 17. Farm organizations and movements in the early 1900s. Boys and Girls Club work underway 1909 to 17. Agriculture, education, and extension. First corn club for boys, forerunner of the 4-H club, was established in 1900. 1903, Seaman Knapp begins boll weevil demonstration project and inspiration for extension education. Oh, boll weevil. Song about that, ain't it? We're coming very close to the end. 1906, an agricultural wagon or movement former school is started by Booker T. Washington of the Tuskegee Institute to teach Southern African American farmers better methods of farming. Quite a man Booker T. Washington was. Developed, I think, peanut butter, and was involved in quite a bit in easing the life of poor folks, black and white alike. Government programs and policy. Well, 1907, federal government roles in agriculture grows with passage of farm legislation. In 1906, the Food and Drug Act, Meat Inspection Act. So, we'll call that one done. Well, I had a lot of stuff here that I never really opened up, but I really enjoyed reading some of that life on the farm. Well, farm life indeed. Farm life, I guess, is, I made a comparison with the off-grid journey of today. So I'm back over here to say howdy to everybody in chat. I'm glad you joined in. Stay tuned. Hal Anthony behind the woodshed. He is coming up next, followed by Truth or Talk. And I'll be back here in just a minute, chat. I'll drop you in some info there. And I really appreciate y'all listening. And again, if you're listening downstream, come back to ucy.tv and find some really, really good stuff here. We've got some of the best people in alternative media. And if you're looking for some truth, then you're going to find it right here. New way of thinking for some. It's becoming more and more commonplace. That's the end, y'all. Love and peace. Appreciate you listening in. And we'll see you on the radio. And waiting for the music. Bam. Yo.